With Alfred, as we know, we're expecting widespread heavy to intense rainfall and flash flooding to affect northern and northeastern zone.
It's action stations at the State Emergency Service with less than 24 hours until the worst cyclone in decades is expected to touch down.
The reason this event is so challenging is because it's a multi-hazard event. It means that there is wind, there is coastal erosion, there is storm surge.
What this means for the entire event is that we could...
Overnight and this morning, evacuation orders were issued for the northern rivers, with 19,000 people affected.
So we're seeing higher winds and we're having a lot more rainfall. In fact, some areas have received over 200 millimetres of rain. We've seen about 40,000 homes already lose power.
While much of the action is happening up north, it's here in the State Command Centre where you get a bird's eye view. It's a joint effort with many agencies involved, including police, fire and the Defence Force.
So as we see this system approach, we are going
One of the big meetings for the day is at 11 a.m, where the Bureau of Meteorology gives an update on the cyclone.
One of the challenges in regards to cyclone versus widespread rainfall and flooding is the significant wind at the same time as river rises and riverine flooding. So we have put a lot of warnings out, undertaken quite a lot of public information, and we have in some instances warned quite early.
Over here we've got people taking calls from the community through via 132500.
Chief Superintendent Dallas Burns takes us through the room where the SES is answering calls for help from around the state.
At the moment I can see on our counter we're at 1100 and it's 11 o'clock in the morning, so that will triple by the end of today to over 3,000. And when we're really busy we might take up to 8,000 calls a day.
If you've ever contacted them, your call will have ended up here.
So you've got a tree falling on the house, hole in roof. Are you just wanting an ETA, are you?
What kind of calls have you had so far?
Mainly, the majority have been around sandbag requests for people who are unable to do that themselves or don't know where to find the sandbag. And we're also seeing a lot of calls come in for help with relocation.
3,000 SES volunteers are in force in northern New South Wales. Memories of the devastating floods in Lismore in 2022 are still lingering. The SES came under fire following an inquiry into those floods. It found many people were not warned in time and needed to be rescued.
What confidence can the public have in the SES this time?
We have deployed quite a number of resources up there, and so the public can have a lot of confidence in the SES.
With Alfred yet to touch down, they're keeping watch and staying vigilant.
We are telling people take this very seriously, and we're already seeing impacts right across the coastline.
The New South Wales SES Commissioner Michael Wassing joins me now from Sydney. Commissioner, welcome to 7:30.
Hello, Sarah.
Just a question about the evacuations. I think we heard that there were 15,000 people who've been evacuated in New South Wales. Are there more evacuations to come, or is that the end for evacuations before the cyclone arrives?
It's very likely that it's not the end of the total number of evacuations. We still haven't seen the cyclone cross the border, across the land, and northern New South Wales and mid-north coast continues to feel very significant effects and significant rainfall, which will very likely lead to further evacuations.
Now, do you have enough people, do you have enough equipment for what you think is to come over the next few days?
For events such as this, you never have enough in terms of there's not a boat and a crew for every household. It's why we have been doing very early messaging, very early warnings, and the community has responded to that extremely well. We've based that on the forecast and we're now seeing that come to effect, but the community's prepared well and evacuated and relocated to family, friends and evacuation centres, which has meant that high-risk locations don't have people there, and it means our crews don't have to be rescuing people. But we also do have very significant pre-deployed capabilities. We've got over 600 boats and assets, SES alone, pre-deployed into the northeast part of the state and mid-north coast. In addition to that, we have significant other emergency service organisations and the ADF.
Now, I know you weren't the Commissioner at the time, but what was the principal lesson learned from the flooding in Lismore in 2022 as far as the SES is concerned?
We are also a learning organisation. We have applied the learnings from 2022, but all of our learnings are really framed now in terms of the early pre-positioning. We've been planning for this event for the 10 days. We've pre-deployed significant resources, SES resources and other organisational resources, as well as support agencies. In addition to that, over the last 3 years, we've been able to build our flood intelligence systems, our communication systems and significant vehicle assets and boat assets, all of which has been deployed and which is giving us the effect in terms of being able to work with the community as closely as we have been and as we are currently.
And just staying with the question of Lismore, obviously there's a lot of trauma left over from the floods in 2022. How have people reacted during the very significant door knocking that's been done by SES?
The community's been absolutely amazing. We're very conscious of the trauma that past floods and past impacts have had on the communities. This event is different. It is different in the sense that we're seeing coastal impacts and significant wind impacts as well as now the rainfall. But they have been tremendous in working with our local SES staff and volunteers and the other emergency services. They've relocated, they've worked with us in terms of evacuations and are well prepared and supporting each other. And I include the emergency services in that support.
Michael Wassing, we wish you the very best of luck for the days ahead, but thank you very much indeed for joining us this evening.
Thank you, Sarah.
To Lismore now, where our reporter Mike Lorigan is standing by. Mike,
good evening, Sarah.
Take me through how the community of Lismore, as you have interacted with them, are feeling today.
Well, it is tense here. We're at the Lismore Evacuation Centre. This is the largest, most significant evacuation centre in the region. The ADF has arrived here just a short time ago to increase capacity, and there is sort of around 260 people of about an hour ago that have sought shelter here, and there are more still that are arriving. And really, these are some of the most vulnerable people in this region that are seeking shelter. This is a last resort, and in terms of how they are dealing with this, well, here at the evacuation centre, it is tense. There are tired, exhausted, anxious people here, and as I said, some of them the most vulnerable, who have come here as a last resort, who are seeking shelter and are really worried about what life looks like on the other side of this weather event. We spoke with one individual, a man named Don Oxley, a 71-year-old man who lives in a caravan by the river, and he is confronting the reality right now and over the last 2 days that he is not going to have a home to go to off the back of this. Take a listen.
I mean, I might lose my caravan, but people are more important than things. It is what it is. It's crowded, but you've got somewhere to sleep and you're dry and safe. So what more could you ask?
That's very difficult to watch. Mike, do we still have you there? Yes, we do. That's good. Mike,
yes, you do. Yeah.
Your day today, what have you been able to see and do in the course of today in Lismore?
Well, we have been able to see the town pretty well. Up to this point, the levee hasn't been breached. Obviously, floodwaters are rising and it's increasing into this evening, but we have seen a lot. There is really a big, comprehensive, response to this from the authorities. They are trying to avoid the response that they saw in 2022. We have seen dozens of emergency service vehicles, swift water response vehicles that have been there. And we were at the Premier's press conference today, and it's very clear that they are trying to get on the front foot. The Premier certainly was wearing wearing a heavy heart today. It was tough information that he's receiving, and it's tough information that he's giving to the public, but they are trying to be proactive here in the Northern Rivers to avoid a human catastrophe that they saw in 2022. But right now, it is very tense. It's emotional, and people are tired and exhausted and anxious about what's going to happen, and they're bracing themselves for what tonight is going to bring and what Cyclone Alfred is bringing to them into the Northern Rivers. Sarah?
Mike, thank you very much indeed for your work. We'll obviously speak to you over the weekend, but you take care and thank you.
Thanks.